Welcome to the Up in Your Family Business podcast, where we dive into the heart of family business with intimate interviews, expert insights, inspirational stories, valuable resources, and practical tips to help grow your family business. I want to start by thanking you for listening to and or watching this episode of Up in Your Family Business podcast. Your time is limited and you have many options for how you spend it. So I am humbled and grateful that you chose this podcast episode. The goal and purpose of this podcast, with the help of our guest, people like you, are to help family businesses gain insights, solve problems, be inspired, seize opportunities, and achieve multi-generational prosperity. Mark Twain said, "Find a job you enjoy doing, and you will never work a day in your life." That is exactly what our guest today has managed to do, except he not only enjoys, but loves what he does.
That's right.
You're a little sick in the head, I tell you this whole stuff. Todd Stadler is a digital marketing specialist in the areas of digital advertising and SEO, among some other things. For those of you out there, I always find it interesting how many people say, "What's SEO?" or "What's search engine optimization?"
Right.
So SEO, you may hear me say SEO. You may hear me say search engine optimization. I might interchange those. And then obviously that's what we are talking about that topic today. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly what that is.
That's right.
So that's the goal. So anyway, he's an expert in those areas and all the things that make those two engines run. But there's a lot more than just SEO, right?
Right.
Today, we will be gaining insights from the extensive knowledge. I'm putting pressure on you. The extensive knowledge Todd has gained over the years. How many years?
Oh, I've been in digital marketing for almost 15 now.
That's what I thought. Okay. I almost put that in there, but I wasn't sure.
Yep.
All right. In addition to his craft, we'll call it a craft.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, you're crafty. He is a man of faith, a husband and father, and an all-around good guy. And no more the expectations.
I know, right? Making me look good.
The good news is you're humble and it doesn't go to your head.
I appreciate that.
You're in good shape. All right. To avoid confusion, because we have two Todds here.
Yes.
All right. There's Todd Stadler and myself, Todd Reimer. So what we often call Todd Stadler is Stad. And that's how everyone addresses you.
Yes.
That's whoever's okay. Cool. Now, one of the thoughts I had is we can call you Stad and call myself Todd, or we can call you Todd and call me like Rhyme or T Rhyme.
Oh, there we go.
I don't know how that would go over.
I don't know. We should just go Stad and Rhyme.
Yeah, that's right. So for today's purposes, until we get a vote on the T Rhyme and Rhyme, we'll just stick with I'm Todd, and our guest today is Stad. Or if I accidentally say Todd, what do you do?
That's right. I'll still answer.
That's right. Okay, so what are Stad and I talking about today? We're talking about empowering family businesses, the essential SEO components for growth. So yes, we are going to talk about this thing called SEO. So we will help guide you, the family business leader, through the vital components of SEO that can transform your company's online presence. That's what it's all about. We'll explore the significance of tools like Google Analytics 4 and Google Business Profile, the importance of regular web audits, staying updated with Google's algorithmic changes and updates. Those are doozies.
Oh, yeah.
Crafting relevant content, and effective keyword research and listings. So these are all very important. And I will say, whether you've have heard about SEO, whether you're doing SEO, I really do believe that when we're done here, you're either going to do it better or you're going to start doing it.
Agreed.
That's the goal here. Rather than focusing on so you might be hearing those terms and going, boy, this is going to be heavy, or maybe even boring. So we're going to do our best not to get technical.
Right.
I mean, we're going to have some technical aspects. We want you to really understand what these things are. But the goal there is to, once we get past that, let's focus on what this actually means in business terms. Like what's the impact on your business? What's the outcome? How do you approach these things? What perspective do you take? That's really the goal here. So there will be some technical aspects, and we apologize for that up front, but it's hard. We're going to try to keep it to a minimum. So we will emphasize, again, like I said, understand how these key elements interconnect to drive, not only to give you a better online presence, but drive growth.
Yeah.
Growth, okay? And success. So, all right, Todd, before you take the floor, I'm going to read some fun SEO statistics.
Okay.
And I think some of these might even blow your mind.
I'm sure I'll like
When
it.
I saw them, I was like, "Say what?" That's right, I said it. So let me share some stats. And what this will do is this will be a good setup for our conversation, because I was amazed at some of these stats. It'll just show you the importance of, again, not just SEO, but a lot of people don't understand all these other moving parts,
Right,
and how they're so important. And it really is true. You can't, I think from what I've seen, a lot of people aren't doing all these things. And to be honest with you, I'll give you some kudos, really, until you started really driving SEO for us. These were things that honestly we weren't aware of either.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. So let me just share some cool stats.
Okay.
And this will set the stage for how important this conversation is. So in January of 2024, this is wild, Google accounted for 92% of the search engine market share across all platforms, all devices.
Yeah, I believe that.
It's amazing.
Yep.
So it looks like Bing has a little ways to go.
Yes, I do.
More than 50% of customers use Google to discover or find a new brand. Excuse me. 59% of customers use Google. Are you still able to hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep, I can
great.
hear
If you see me go like this at all, you let me know.
Okay.
59% of customers use Google to find information about products they want to purchase. That's 59%.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And feel free to add anything to these if you like. Google considers more than 200 ranking factors, which change regularly.
That actually, there was a leaked document that came out. It's like over 10,000. It's like 14,000 different ranking factors that go.
Is that what it is?
It's crazy.
Okay.
Amount. Yep.
Okay. That's interesting. This report had more than 200.
That could be like major.
I think it is.
Yeah, but
I
then
think
there's
it
like
is.
actually 14,000 different little things.
And that's, again, my guess is most people who are doing SEO don't know about that. There may be some people actually, when I say doing, I'm talking about the clients. So there may be clients out there doing SEO that don't even know these details.
Right.
My guess is there might be people out there executing SEO who don't know how to do all these things either. That's what's bad. So, but not with you, right? Only 33% of websites can pass the core web vitals threshold. So there's your web audit right there. Isn't that incredible?
Yep.
33% of websites. Moving up this one really blew my mind. Moving up a single position in Google search results leads to a relative click-through rate increase of 32%.
That's a good stat. I like
Here's
that
a
one.
good stat. Yeah. Moving on up.
That's right.
To the sky. This is wild. Clients are 2.7 times more likely to consider a company reputable if it has a complete business profile on Google Maps and search. Think about that. If your Google business profile is complete and up to date, and there's a lot, we'll learn, there's a lot that goes into that. It's not just what you see up there, right?
Right.
But 2.7 more times likely to see them as reputable. So if your Google business profile is incomplete, kind of half-baked, if you will, you're going to suffer.
I believe that. Yes, absolutely.
And I think there are businesses out there that their Google business profile is underperforming, under-optimized.
Completely agree. And I think it's one of the most important factors that businesses should, take into account.
Really? Okay. I did not know that.
We'll touch that.
Yeah,
later.
that's okay. That's pretty cool. I'm even more excited now. I would not have guessed that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That was an importance like up at the top. So people are 70% more likely to visit local businesses with complete business profile. So there's that reputation aspect. You're seen as 2.7 times more likely to be as reputable, and you're also 70% more likely to get that person as a customer.
That's a great stat.
70% to visit.
Crazy. Yep.
Yeah, that is incredible, and that came straight from Google. I'm not giving all the sources here, but a lot of these sources are from Think with Google, Google, Search Engine Land. These are all reputable sources. But that one right there, that 70% and that 2.7, both came directly from Google.
From Google.
Yep. 75% of clients feel more positive about using a local business after reading a positive review about it.
I believe that.
That came from Bright Local. 28% of Google searches for something nearby lead to a purchase. So there's that nearby component.
Yep.
28%. So, and I doubt we'll get into it. We probably won't get into it today because we're not going to get too technical. But that whole short, what do they call it? Long tail
keywords.
Yeah, all that stuff. That probably plays a factor in there. But that near me thing, 28%. Right. And then the last one, and this is the one that's really amazing to me, brings it all together. 58%. This is an opportunity for us, right? 58% of businesses still haven't opted in for local SEO. 58% of businesses nationwide are not even doing SEO. And if they're not doing SEO, there's a really good chance that their content might not be on point. Their Google business profile might not be set up accurately.
Yep.
What are some other things? Those Google algorithm updates we're going to talk about might be affecting. They maybe haven't looked at their website for a long time, so they built it, and now it's just sitting there, and there's all this back-end stuff that we need to look at.
Right.
So when I saw 58% of businesses still haven't opted for local SEO, that told me that those are millions of businesses that are not positioning, they're not taking advantage of all these important components. So, all right. So, wow. I'm really glad I shared those. Those are fun.
Yeah, those are fun.
Okay. And I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on some of those. Okay, so I think that sets the stage really nicely. This thing called SEO and all the components that are part of it are important. They're vital.
Yes.
Okay, so you could have sales and business development. You could have a nice website. You could have a whole bunch of other things going on, but this really is. SEO could be confusing for some people. We're hoping to mitigate that today. SEO could be something that you never want to even think about, but you need to find someone that you can trust to do it, do it well. It actually is. SEO, after all these years, and even though it's changed and the way you rank and how you move up the ranks and things like that, the bottom line is SEO is just as important as it was 15 years ago.
Yep.
Has not changed.
Yep.
So you would agree with that?
It hasn't changed, but it changes daily.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So.
You're right. So, okay. So all that, thank you. So let's go ahead and jump into the questions.
Okay.
And as I told you before we started today, some of these questions, they're just going to be like quick little, just the points so that the listeners and the viewers can have a general understanding.
Sure.
And then when we get into some of these questions where it's more like how it really impacts their business, you might want to go a little bit more into it. So we do have a lot of questions today, just so you guys know. But Stad and I feel that if we didn't go somewhat deep, if we didn't cover some of these areas, then our conversation today would be incomplete.
Right.
So we want to make sure you leave informed. We want to make sure you leave empowered, and we want to make sure you leave understanding how important this all is. So from here on out, I'm going to add a little bit, but this is really yours. I'll ask you questions, and then we want to hear from you.
You set me up, I'll knock them down.
I know you will. Ding, ding. Here we go. Okay, first we're going to do like an introduction or overview of SEO.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how much people understand what SEO is. So just real quickly, can you explain what SEO is and why it's essential for family businesses?
Sure. So like you were saying about having a website, it could look very nice to us as a user, but search engine optimization is making it look good to Google. And like, what does Google look for in a good website? And there's, like we had mentioned, like over 10,000 different little data points that goes into search engine optimization. But when it's all said and done, Google wants relevant, helpful content and information for the users that go to Google to get. So what search engine optimization to me is making your website a useful tool for users. So if you have a service, you want to make sure your website looks good to Google for those services you want to show up for.
And then some of those other components I've mentioned kind of support that, feed into that.
Right.
And I think it's those outlying things that are sometimes overlooked.
Right.
I think most people, if they do know about SEO, I think they've heard about keywords. I think they've heard about content. I just don't think people understand the other pieces that go into it or how important they are. And I think we'll make that clear here.
Right. And like you had mentioned, Google Business Profiles, I mean, that's one aspect that doesn't have anything to do necessarily with your website, but does affect local SEO.
Right.
So
yep.
It's not just websites. It's kind of like your whole online presence.
That's right. There you go. Thank you. See, I walked right into that one. That's what we're talking about today. Good job. So that first question, I did say briefly explain, but like if I were to ask you, just the two of us sitting out there, what's SEO? It's like, do you have a minute or an hour? Right? It's a lot. So, so that's great. So how can you mentioned the online presence? How can a strong online presence impact the growth and success of a family business?
Well, kind of what you alluded to with your awesome stats at the beginning about how keeping your Google business profile optimized and up to date affects the end users and building that trust with what they're searching for. So if you have an incomplete business profile, you don't have your hours up to date, you don't have your holiday hours, you don't have reviews, or you're not replying to reviews, it kind of takes away some of that trust factor that some people look for when they go online. So that's kind of like where you had mentioned, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. It's okay. I shared a lot of stats.
Right, your stats. So there's so much that goes into SEO, but having, one aspect of your Google business profile that you can actively keep up to date is a good way to build that trust with the end user, like looking for your services or products.
Right. I always say I know enough about SEO that I can talk about it, but not too much. Right. I don't want to confuse things. So I would say then, if you're a viewer or listener, unless you actually learn about SEO and do SEO, you're never going to really fully understand it. And you don't need to. What you have to do is understand that you want to have a strong online presence, and that SEO is it probably or is the most important driving force for that. I think it's.
It's one of the most important things is having a strong online presence. I mean, especially if you're not doing paid ads, how are people going to find you? And you need to build up your website so Google recognizes and knows what your website's about, so it can populate that when someone is searching for your service.
Yeah. So if no one understands anything, what is SEO? SEO is, I know he mentioned these things. SEO is a tool or a strategy or an approach to having a stronger online presence, which would then drive growth and success for my business.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Let's get into some of the details. Okay. Let's start with Google Analytics 4.
Okay.
I know we used to have this thing called Universal, and then before that, I think it was just Google Analytics, whatever. Yep. So we're at 4 now.
Right.
Don't worry about that stuff. Just make sure you're on Google Analytics 4.
Right.
Okay. So what is Google Analytics 4, and how is it different from the previous analytics platform?
Sure. So they made the switch over last July 2023 to GA4. It's more event-based.
Okay.
So different ways to track events have been set up to make it more accurate in tracking, phone calls, form fills, purchases, and things like that. But it's your way to monitor like how well you're doing with your website, like how many visitors you're getting, how many are new visitors, how long they're spending on your website, whether or not they're bouncing, which pages are being utilized the most.
Phone calls.
Yep. So it really gives you all the important information you need in one place to see where you're gaining clients, maybe where you're losing people from your website, how many new users, is your web traffic going up, is it going down? So pretty much all, useful information to help make decisions on what's working and maybe what needs to be done to get better.
So Google Analytics 4 sounds like it's way more robust than Universal.
Yes, that's the idea.
That's the idea.
Yep.
So it is better.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we had our first client.
Although it has some headaches at the beginning,
does? Okay.
But they're constantly updating it, and it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah. When we had our first client request Google Analytics 4 setup, which you did, I couldn't believe how many different, just in the basic setup, how many things there are to track now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty extensive.
Yep.
That's cool. So you basically just explained, I was going to ask you about how to leverage Google Analytics 4 to gain insights. So you mentioned about these metrics. So you mentioned all the things that it tracks. So you're tracking all these things. How do you leverage or utilize all that data for your business? How do you interpret that data, and how do you apply it?
Well, do we have a minute, or do we have like 5 hours?
There you go again. We have a minute.
Right. So long story short, you can use the data that you get out of GA4, Google Analytics 4, to make business decisions. So say you're an e-commerce business and you're not getting e-commerce sales. Well, you can track, okay, we've had 40 different add to carts, but they're not taking that step. Are they bailing off the website before they check out on which step in the process? And that could maybe help you make a decision on, we need to make our checkout process a little bit smoother for people because they're bouncing before they complete that step.
That's
even
important.
though they've
That's
added
important.
these. So, then like I would mention, the bounce rate. So if are people coming to the website and they're only on the website for 10 seconds and bouncing, they're not finding the information they need. So we need some more relevant content. Or if you're using, Google Ads and you're driving them to your website and your click-through rate's great, but they're not making that form fill, they're not making that phone call, maybe we need to give them a little bit more information. So GA4 is really a good tool to, use to analyze the data of like how your website's performing. Is it performing well, or is it need some help, and where does that help need to come from?
Yeah, and I'm hearing two things, which is really cool. You are correct. It definitely, of course you're correct, but what I mean is I agree with that. Just want to let you know you're correct.
I appreciate that.
In case you're one. So yes, it does. From what I'm hearing from you, it's not just telling you how well your website is performing, but it's also giving you insight into how your customer or your visitors are behaving.
That's the important
when you
part.
mentioned the part about the cart or how they were interacting with the website, that's not just how well your website's functioning. That's literally how your customer and your potential buyers and your visitors interact with that website as well. So that behavior side is huge.
Right. It's the whole, like, you could take the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, we can, you can drive traffic to your website, but if they're not getting the water that they need, they're bouncing. You can use the data and like, okay, they're bouncing off of this page before they hit that desired remark or the desired result.
That's really cool.
What can we do on this page to make it maybe more engaging to our client or the potential client?
Yeah. So not only do you not want to just build your website and let it sit there, and yes, you want to know, is it performing well? But you also want to be looking at how are people engaging and interacting with this thing called my website.
Right.
Because that's going to tell you a lot too.
Yes.
So it's not just how it's built; it's how it engages.
Yes.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I love that. Okay. We can obviously on any of these we could always go deeper,
Right.
but for your benefit, we're not going to go too deep. Hopefully, just from that, you've seen how important it is. So if you're not set up on Google Analytics 4, get set up on Google Analytics. Find someone who knows how to do that, because if you have a website and maybe you're not getting leads, it could be any of these things, but it very well could be.
Yeah.
It could be something you can uncover and see just from your analytics.
Right. Exactly.
So don't worry about. You don't have to understand how to set up Google Analytics. You don't need to understand more than what Stad just shared. But I think the most important thing is get it set up and do learn how to take advantage of it.
Right.
What are those behaviors? What is that? What are those performance metrics?
Right.
That's huge.
Yep.
Okay. All right. We're going to move into what I think you shared as the most important. If I had known that, I would have either made that number one or the last one. I'm not really sure. So let's jump into Google Business Profile. So what is it and why is it critical?
So the Google Business Profile used to be like Google Maps, like your Google Business Profile, where you house your reviews, all your information, your business hours, holiday hours, what type of business you are. And what's great about it, and why I think it's one of the most important, is it's a free tool for all businesses, and it's directly related to the Google Maps section. So especially if you accept clients at your location and you're not utilizing this, I recommend you highly do that right now.
Okay.
And it's free. You just set it up, but you house your reviews. And I think when we were talking about earlier, when your awesome stats about, if the people that have, the businesses that have their profile completely filled out, or 70% or whatever.
That's 70 and that 2.7 or something like that.
More likely to utilize that service.
Reputation's up, visits are up, all that kind of stuff.
Right. So it shows that you're an active business. The more reviews you get, it builds that trust factor, especially online when people have, some tendencies not to be very trustworthy of online businesses. They do their
makes it look incompetent.
Right. They do their searching and their research, and they want to find a business that they feel all warm and fuzzy with. And if you have a complete business profile filled out with reviews, and they see you're responding to the reviews, that shows you're an active, that gives you a kind of a warm feeling about the customer service that they might expect from an active business.
It's interesting. You hear the term, it's the first line of defense. It sounds like the Google Business Profile is the first line of offense.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Offense. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't have that down, you might be in trouble.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So there are a lot of things that go into the Google Business Profile. What do you see when you see an incomplete Google Business Profile? What is typically not included that most people are missing?
Business hours.
Really?
That drives me nuts. Like, I don't know, as a user myself, like, I want to know if the business is going to be open, when I need to go there. Do they close at 6 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night, after I get the kids off the bus at school? Do I have time to go run the errand or whatever? If there's no business hours listed, I even find that on websites, like not listing business hours, but just having incomplete information will determine whether or not I go visit that location or not.
Or deter.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, I guess, because it's funny, a lot of people, this doesn't minimize the importance of your website, but a lot of times people are going to find your number or your address or your phone directly from your Google Business Profile, not your website. Now, they can click on your website. I see a lot of businesses too, they don't have a link to their website. It's so bizarre.
Yes.
But of the things that are missing, and I don't, you could answer this either from a technical perspective, or you can answer it like in the way that you just described. What is the most, if you're going to forget to include something, which one is most detrimental? Again, that could be technical from like a complete, the optimization, or it could be like you said, that if the hours aren't there, you might just lose customers. But from the way you build it, what's the most important one not to miss?
Well, if you accept phone calls, make sure you have your phone number associated with your business, Google Business Profile.
Okay.
And if you accept clients or people at your location, make sure you have the correct address.
Is there anything on your Google Business Profile directly that on the technical side links back to your quote unquote SEO efforts?
Yeah, so you have your website linked on your Google Business Profile that will then go to your website.
That link is really important, right? Okay.
And then having your address there, that helps with the local SEO as well.
So it actually does affect the efficacy of your SEO.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not just something on there like, oh, it's nice to have. It actually matters in a lot of ways.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Let me see here. Okay. Is there anything else about Google Business Profile? I know it's really important to you and it's really critical. What else? What would be? I don't want to get too far into it, but is it easy for people? Here's what I'll ask you. Is it easy for people? Could people Google how to optimize their Google Business Profile, or is it better to have an SEO expert do it?
Yes.
I like it.
So, yes, they can do it themselves. It's absolutely free to do with Google. And the basic setup is easy. You're just putting in your business information, which the business owner should know and everything. But I think once we get to content and stuff later in this talk, there's some things that we can talk about there that the GBP post.
I was, I had a question about GB. You're right on it, and I thought, should I make that part of the GBP profile, or the GBP, or should I make that about content? I think I'm on the same page with you. We'll make that part of the content, so that all makes sense.
Okay.
So we'll talk about what our GBP posts. I don't know if you've heard of them or not. They are critical, and we'll get more into that we get
GBP
the content.
Standing for Google Business Profile.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let me ask you this: if it is that easy, my last question is, if it's that easy to set up, why do you think you might know? I don't know if it's a guess or a no, but why do so many people? There are a lot of people out there that don't have a complete Google Business Profile.
They might not have set it up, and sometimes, like, if Google finds out you're a business, they'll create like one for you to claim. And the one thing is, other people can go ahead and claim your business. So if you don't claim your Google Business Profile, it's free game for other people to go out there and claim. I could go out. So I actually, I've claimed them for other people, like as a service to them. Like, hey, I noticed you don't have it. I would like to get this set up for you, because if you don't, someone else could. And then unless you ask to have ownership of it and they grant it to you, you're kind of SOL.
So it may very well. Now I'm thinking. It may very well be, unless you're in the marketing space, unless you're in the SEO space, unless you're actually doing these things we're talking about today. It's easy for if you're not a marketing person, you're just an owner of a business.
You might not even know about it.
Not know about it, not think about it. Yeah.
And you're worried running your business day to day and not about this.
Yeah. So for those of you out there watching and listening, so again, we talked about the Google Analytics 4. Definitely important to get that set up. As far as GBP, Google Business Profile, check yours, see if it's complete. Either find an SEO expert who can help you with that, and I'll say that again and again and again. But as Stat indicated, it is easy to set up. You just have to be aware of it. You have to know what you're looking for, and get that set up. It is critical. Make sure it's optimized. Make sure it's complete. Okay. All right. Again, just like with GA4, we could probably talk at great length. Like you said, you have a minute or an hour.
Right.
So I think that's good. So again, the goal is, as you can see, Google Analytics is important to have set up so you can see how your website's performing. It's important to have your GBP set up so you can actually convert visitors and drive them to your website or wherever else you want them to go. So those are interconnected. Now, speaking of website, we're going to move into web audits. Okay, and web audits are interesting. I really do believe, in my experience, talking to people, I do believe that people have a build it and they will continue to come mentality. I'm gonna trademark that.
All right.
Build it and they will continue to come. Well, I think I got onto something there.
All right, there you go.
And we're gonna end this podcast. We have things we have to do. But I think a lot of people build a website, and not only do people not make updates and edits, but they might be like, oh, my website still looks good. Mm-hmm. What they don't realize, again, until you get into that world, you don't understand that it's not an apples to apples comparison, but kind of think like once your car leaves the car lot, it loses value and it starts getting wear and tear.
Right.
A website's the same. You build it, and or it's like when you're born. The minute you're born, you start dying, right? You start getting old, right? Website's kind of the same thing. Maybe that's a better comparison. I feel like a lot of people build their website and they don't touch it for years. Forget about all this other stuff. They don't look at their website. They don't make content changes. They don't make improvements to pictures, images.
Right.
They're not doing anything on the back end to make sure. So if you're not doing a web audit, it very well, your website, let's say your website was perfect on the day it launched. There's a really good chance, potentially a week later, a month later, there may be things that are interfering with that performance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that crazy how that works?
Crazy, yeah.
It is crazy. So let's get into web audits because I think they're critical.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me, I kind of alluded to the importance of it, about why it's important to me, but I want to hear from you. So what is a web audit? And from your professional perspective, why is it so important?
Sure. So I refer to it as like a website health audit. So it's kind of like
website health audit. Yeah.
How the website looks to you. It could look great to us as humans, but what the website health audit will do is how does it look to search engines like Google? Like what it will kick back is, are there any errors, warnings, issues? And some of those could be like title tags, meta descriptions, H1s, too many H1s, no H1s.
Don't worry about all this stuff. It's just, he's making a point.
I'll end it there with the technical jargon, but it's
what are you doing?
Right. All the main items that Google looks at, that's what a website health audit will do. I've run into where there's a lot of people that will have a brand new website and they'll like, oh, I've got this brand new website. It's got to be great, but you run a website health audit. Well, a lot of times people they can build websites, but they're not an SEO person. So it's not built technically for Google, but it's built well for the human eye. And it looks great, but it's not built well enough for Google to understand what the website's about with all the technical stuff I had just kind of mentioned.
So it may be on-site or it may not be on-site optimized.
Correct.
And especially if it starts not optimized for on-site, as time passes, it just gets worse.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
So I would even run a website health audit on a brand new website just to make sure technically it's sound before, moving too far away from the launch date. Yeah.
In fact, that's per your advice, that's something that we now do. We'll launch a website and then I don't know if it's a week later or 2 weeks later, because it can look perfect. But launching a website is it sounds like an easy thing, but it's like anything else. You launch something and there could be some snags and difficulties with it. So we per your advice, we like to do web health audits soon after a website launches.
Yeah.
A lot of times you can catch those things right away. So without getting too technical, why do these things? Why is it that your website is this living, breathing thing? Again, you mentioned meta tags and all these technical things, but essentially, why does that happen? Why is it that this is something that on a regular basis is happening? What causes that?
Adding additional content to websites, like, so after you're like, so you have all the technical stuff fixed, and then it's ongoing, like, so if you have multiple people working on the website, they might not be an SEO person, they're adding website content. Well, that content still needs to be optimized for Google with the title tags and meta descriptions, and make sure all of optimized images and things like that. So
I see.
it's kind of like a couple different specialties. So I'm trying to think of a good analogy.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking the same thing. And maybe we don't need one. That's okay. So basically, it's just something that happens. No.
Right.
So basically, with a website, it's kind of like every time you get under the hood of a car, you can't just, you got to make sure that when you're working on a certain aspect of the car that you know what's going on, how that's affecting the rest of the car.
Right.
You kind of have to know that.
Right.
Otherwise, you could do damage to the rest of the car. I mean,
you could call like a HVAC company that does plumbing, and one person's an expert in heating and cooling, but a different person in that company is an expert in the plumbing. It's kind of like the same with building a website versus technical SEO.
Yeah. I reserve the right to use one more automobile metaphor.
Okay, go for it.
Analogy. I'll save it for later. So I think I've used it twice. Okay. Okay. So, how often should a family business do a web audit? And is it something they can do themselves, or is it really something that only someone who has expertise and familiarity with that? I mean, it sounds like a simple thing. I'll do a web audit, but I know from my perspective, again, I know enough about SEO to be dangerous, as they always say.
Right.
But I think we can say to people, well, go to this one website and you can run a report and you'll see what all the problems are. But unless, in my opinion, tell me if I'm wrong, unless you know what to do with that information on the audit, what are you going to do? Exactly. So that's, to me, fixing those things is not something that everyone can do. Only someone who really is immersed in the SEO world that understands how a website functions and how all these things are working on a website, can they address those? Correct.
Yeah, you have to know the back end of a website in order to fix what's wrong technically with it.
Yeah, and what all these complicated messages.
Right.
I'll look at a web health audit, and I'm a simpleton, so I'll be like, whoa, that looks like a lot of problems. Stad, what do you think? What do we do here? Now, there have been a couple of times I looked at it and you've been like, yeah, it's not that bad, but so I'm more looking at it just from a broad perspective, meaning like, wow, those are a lot of mess. But what I've learned through looking at health audits, some of those things are minor, but some of those things are pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is one of those things where you can get information, but unless you know what to do with that information, the information really is worthless.
Correct. Yeah.
So I'm glad you were there to do those things for us.
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, I know you are. So when you're, I guess just from an educational, because again, unless you're immersed in this world, you can't really do it. But when you're doing a web audit, you mentioned, what were the errors? Things like that.
Errors, warnings.
Warnings, and yeah, okay. I always want to say errors and omissions. Yeah. Errors, omissions, oversights, whatever. I don't need to know all that stuff. But of all the things that you uncover, what's the most important thing to be looking for? What impacts your website performance, your online presence the most?
As far as a technical issue, like title tags, meta descriptions, H1s, those are like the three main things I look at because those are three of the main things besides content that Google can crawl the website for and know what the web page is
about. That crawlability again. Dang it.
Yep.
I hate that word.
Yep.
So in real life layman's terms, as far as web audits are concerned, so let's say you do build your website and you don't touch it. So let's forget about, again, content. Let's forget about the aesthetics. That looks good.
Right.
It is good, whatever. If someone is not doing, as we're talking about online presence and how it impacts the business, if you are not keeping up on these things, over time, does the situation just get worse?
Yeah. I mean, if you're not actively trying to promote your website in any shape, form, or fashion, you're just going to keep dropping in rankings to those companies that are actively doing
Right.
SEO or digital marketing of some sort, or actively keeping their website up to date and adding relevant content.
Yeah, so it's not this web audit report, this web health audit report. It's not like you can just ignore it and it'll get better. It will just keep getting worse and worse and worse.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. Okay, and again, I wonder. I can't remember if I had a stat on it or not, but what was it? What percentage of businesses didn't pass that basic test? 33%. Some people, but I would have expected that to be higher because I have a feeling that some people just get lucky.
Yeah, right.
I mean, seriously, we still have a lot more to cover, but after hearing this, especially the web audit, it really, and maybe the audience is thinking, it really makes me think that a lot of people think of SEO in simple terms like ranking page on a website. I think I'm not minimizing Google Business Profile, Google Analytics 4, and all that stuff. But what I heard from everything you shared with web audits, it's one of those things where it's not so simple as I'm doing SEO and I'm gonna do whatever. It's not so simple as keywords. It's not just a couple little things I do and boom, you're on the next page. You have to know what's going on under the hood.
Yeah. Yeah.
There it is. There's the third one.
There it is.
You have to know what's going on under the hood. Otherwise,
right.
It's just going to get worse.
Yep.
It's just
site speed is another part of the website health audit as a speed test.
And a lot of people talk about that. My website doesn't load fast enough.
If it's not mobile optimized, there's different ways to optimize mobile pages as well.
So what would you say then with that? So would you say what is the leading cause? Just on a side note, I do know a lot of people get frustrated. I've had conversations with people where their site doesn't load, at least in their expectation, quickly enough. What is the main reason that a website doesn't load quickly enough?
I'll run a website audit and let you know.
Okay, sounds good.
Now,
all the above.
Images, having large image files, having large videos that aren't formatted properly and condensed for websites. Those are probably the two main things that will slow down a website. Okay.
All right, man, this is fun. I love this. I will say I didn't. I enjoy, I just want to plug you a little bit, but I enjoy talking about SEO. I enjoy sharing it with people more confidently since you've been a part of the team doing this. I feel like I've learned a lot from you.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that's why I was so excited about doing this. I've been trying to teach people about, hey, make sure you do a web audit. Hey, make sure you do Google's, your GBP's optimized. And then one day I was like, man, after talking with Todd for all this time about it, I thought, this is all interconnected. So like if I send someone an email and say, you should probably optimize your Google Business Profile, I'm not really doing them a full favor. I could email them and say, hey, there's been a Google algorithm update, which we'll talk about here soon. That doesn't really tell the whole story. So you can take all these things and you can say, hey, do this and hey, do that. What you've helped me to understand is that, yes, each one of these in their own right is important.
Yes.
But the reason we're doing this podcast interview today is because together, if you really want to have a strong SEO presence, have a strong online presence, really drive traffic to your site and really drive people into your store, whether that be e-commerce or in person, right?
Right.
A brick and mortar, all of these things, still things that we're getting ready to talk about, they're important.
They're all important.
They're all equally important. Yeah, I love it. Can you hear my excitement?
Yeah, I can.
And I'm not even an SEO guy. Man, you've made SEO fun, Stat. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, let's move into this thing called Google algorithm updates. This is one thing that is not, it's not part of your, I almost had this last, but I wanted to have it before we got into this thing called content and keyword, because that's really big.
Yeah.
So I decided to talk about Google algorithm updates. And just for you guys out there, first of all, and again, a lot of people don't know about Google algorithm updates.
Right.
They happen, and from what I've seen, they could be a major reason why your traffic goes.
Yep.
Falls
off the table.
I've seen some of the charts, the graphs, whatever you want to say. I've seen people, and then there's a Google, and we'll tell you guys in a second, there's an algorithm update, and then just bam.
Yep.
Okay. Google algorithm updates are one thing. It's not something that you can do to proactively do.
Right.
It's something you have to proactively respond to.
Correct.
So of all these things we're talking about, you can optimize, you can have someone optimize your Google business profile. We'll talk about content and keywords. You can set up Google Analytics and look at those things. The only thing you cannot control are these things called Google algorithm updates. The only thing you can do is be looking for them, aware of them, and know what to do when they happen. So with that said, I'll let you explain. What is a Google algorithm update? Why does it happen? How often does it happen? So what is it? How often does it happen? And how do you respond to it? And what happens if you don't respond to it, other than whoop?
Right. So Google makes Google algorithm updates like daily. I mean, there's
daily.
Yes, they do thousands of updates a year.
Okay.
But they have major ones.
That's the word I left out. Sorry, major.
Major ones usually once a quarter is usually what happens. Last year they had like 7 or 8. They increased it.
Just last year.
Yeah, it was crazy. So like you said, what do I do about it? So after I get done banging my head on the desk, then I start going through the data and see how it affected clients and their websites. Are we seeing a drop off or an increase? So just because there's an update doesn't mean necessarily you're going to fall off the table. You could see increased benefit from it, but the ones that do usually see the increased benefits are from people that are constantly actively doing SEO and adding content. And the ones that usually see a big decrease are people that have maybe don't optimize their site or just have a website and they don't do anything with it. And one thing you can do is use a monitoring like SEMrush. That's one of the tools I think I'll mention later. But
do you know when they're coming?
No, you'll never know when they're coming.
Wow.
Unless, like, usually people in the SEO
they come in the dark of the night.
They do. People will start seeing like volatility in some rankings, and then the murmurs start happening in the SEO community that there's going to be an algorithm update happening, and then usually Google then about a week later say, we're in the process of rolling out a new update, and it could take 3 weeks.
And that's when you bang your head?
That's when you start, really following everything that's happening with like rankings, what's going up, what's going down.
So you don't know when they're coming.
Nope.
1 year you might have 4. 1 year you might have 7 or 8.
Yep. You're not sure what the main major changes in the algorithm. Then they'll give it a name. Like the one last year in the fall was like helpful content update. So what they were really trying to get rid of are like the spammy websites that are just launching thousands of blogs at a time, because Google's main goal is just to provide helpful content information to users.
So basically a major Google algorithm update happens, and then you spend X number of months telling your clients, don't worry, but it might take a little bit of time to recover. And as soon as you start seeing, boom,
right,
there's another one.
There's another one.
Yeah. Again, that's why it's so. My guess is, of all this stuff we've talked about, I'm willing to bet. I don't have a statistic. I'm willing to bet that most people either don't know about the updates, the major ones, so they don't even know about what it is.
Right.
They don't even know what happens.
No.
And those that maybe know about it, they probably don't know what to do about it. Again, you have to know what to do. That, and what's ironic is you can't just go on Google and say, how do you recover or respond from one of your major updates?
Right.
They're not gonna do it. It's something that that's why I say yours is a craft. There's so much that goes into every component of this. Things you need to be looking for, things you need to know, things you need to be tinkering with, or it's a lot.
It is.
So again, SEO is more. It's SEO. I think when I think about marketing, I feel SEO is one of the most misunderstood. No, and I mean in two ways. Not only do most people not understand it, but they don't understand the importance of it.
Right.
I really don't. It's so oversimplified. First page, top ranking.
Right.
Just do that.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So, wow. Okay. So, what? Again, I've alluded to this. There are a lot of these things. You have to be immersed in this trade, this craft, in order to do it. But is there? I mean, what recourse? So let's say you're a family business owner, and you're like, man, I remember listening to that podcast interview between Stad and Todd, or Stad and T rhyme. I remember that podcast, and there was something on there about Google, major Google algorithm updates. I wonder if my website has been hit by that. I wonder if my traffic is down. I wonder if I'm suffering from that. Oh my gosh, what do I do? What do you do?
Start with an audit.
So it goes back to the audit.
Go back to the audit.
There you go. See what I mean? Yeah.
Yep. If you use Google Analytics, like if you do,
hey, good
Google
job.
Analytics,
All right, nice.
Seen, go in there, have your users and sessions gone down. You know, what date did they start going down? And then if you want to do it yourself, Google, like, has there been any major Google algorithm updates? And then read about what that update affected,
the timing of
how
it.
that affect, how would that, and then translate how would that update affect what you have on your website.
Okay. I just want to thank you. You just did it. You just walked right into that one.
There we go.
So now you're aware of it, but now you got to find somebody that knows what to do about it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You know of anybody?
I might know one.
Okay. Cool. All right. Again, there's a lot more. I think that covers that pretty well. Again, I think those algorithm updates are important. I think you need to know. It's good to know It's good to know when they've happened. My guess is most of you have never heard of it. Be aware of these things. Know when they've happened. Find someone who can help you recover from those. Because I tell you what, we can talk about all these things, and from what I've seen, those major Google algorithm updates, I'm not minimizing. I know you mentioned about the importance of GVP, and all these things have their place. But I can tell you from what I've seen, those major Google algorithm updates can just knock you on your butt.
Last year was really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, off the table, like one in the winter of last February or March in 2023, and then the ones in the fall were like too big. I mean, they had back-to-backs. There was like 2.25 of each one. So
it's incredible. Yeah, I saw the chart, and it was like there was one, and there was a break, and then there was like, it was like if you were to look at over the course of the year, it was like ding, ding, ding. I'm like, holy, like what did you do in this one that you couldn't have thought to do in this one? Like, good gosh. So I'm not an SEO expert. Just from layman's terms, putting myself, just looking from the outside in, when I learned about the Google algorithm updates, the major ones, I was like, whoa. Every time I see them, you can clearly see when you do that web audit and you look at your analytics, you can clearly see when your decline happened. Yep. It's almost always the Google algorithm updates.
Yep.
It's incredible.
Yes, it is.
And all these other things like GBP, obviously, they play a role in maintaining, but wow. Bam! Those updates are brutal.
Yep,
they're brutal, and more are coming.
Yeah, always coming.
So going back to what I said was, again, if you build your website, they will not necessarily keep coming, because just think about that alone. Just those 7 updates. If you didn't know about them, you didn't do anything about them, you didn't do a web audit, and didn't see all the impact. My guess is if you did nothing, by the time the end of the year came, and you had those 7. You would go into that web health audit, it'd be pretty brutal.
Oh, absolutely.
It'd be a lot of work to do.
Yep. Oh, tons.
A lot of work to do. Last question about that. So when I know there are things to do. We're not going to get technical, but how quickly can you technically recover from? So let's say you have our SEO clients.
Right.
All of a sudden, hey guys, there was an update. There was a major update yesterday. I know there's a quick hit, but how soon, if you get on it right away and you do the things that you do on the back end, how quickly can you mitigate that?
Usually within a couple weeks.
Okay.
And if you don't do anything, then it just keeps dropping.
Okay, so a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can stop the bleeding.
Awesome. And again, what we're seeing here is there's an awareness, and then there's doing something about it, and then it's having someone who can do something about it. That's the hard part. A lot of people hire just I'm not trying to plug anybody here. I'm just trying to help. But a lot of people, they don't have anyone really in marketing.
Right.
So who's seeing this stuff? I doubt it's the owners,
right,
or the family business leaders, whatever. Then they might hire a marketing person, but every marketing person has areas of expertise and limitations.
Right.
I have a hard time believing that a lot of marketing managers who are generalist can do everything that needs to be done.
Right.
So unless you really are a digital marketing specialist like yourself, unless you really because the reason I used the word craft, I wasn't just trying to be crafty with that. I wasn't just trying to give you some props. It is a craft because it is something that you have to, it's something that you have to stay on top of, learn about. it's like you have to get recertified all the time.
Constantly reading updated, like in search engine journal. I mean, there's just always something new to learn and, update. It's just always something. That's why I like it, because it's always learning something.
That's why you love it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I guess I think you have to love it, because it really is challenging. I mean, there's a lot that goes on there. So yeah, that's cool. Okay. I think we're about at an hour. So I don't want to rush this for the sake of rushing by any means. But I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity. I don't want people to get dissuaded and tune out.
Sure.
Because I think what we're going to talk about next is really important. So if you could, just stick with us a few more minutes. I have some questions around content. And I wasn't really sure which questions to ask you. And then I had some things around keyword research and listings. I think what I'm going to do is, rather than ask you the questions, I know you're real passionate about, you know a lot about these areas. I think what I'd rather do is, rather than ask you a question, you know the importance of content. You understand what that means to have relevant content. You understand the importance of it and what it means to keep that content up to date, whether it's your website content, your Google Business Profile. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to not ask you my 4 questions that I have. When it comes to content, I'm just going to let you go. You share with the audience what you think is important for them to know about content.
Okay. So how I would recommend approaching content for your website is always start with a keyword researk.
Okay.
Whether it's
You're just tying it right in there, aren't you?
Yep, right there it is. So I like using Google Keyword Planner, search engine, SEMrush, SEMrush, a couple different tools just to see what kind of data I can get, because having a keyword with an S at the end is different than having it without the S. So how are people searching? I want to make sure we're writing content and optimizing the website for the way people search the most with the least amount of competition if possible. So usually we get kicked back a couple thousand different types of keywords depending on the business and the services, and then go through the list of what keywords are low competition versus which ones are high competition and search the most. And then take that, and then inside of other tools is you want to try to create helpful content. So can you answer a question with those keywords included? So does a blog you have like FAQs in it that answer a certain question with the keywords you're trying to target? So that's kind of where the content and the keyword research kind of play hand in hand. And then, like, how do you know if that's working? Well, you check and see if your rankings increase for those keywords that you're including in the blogs or the on-page content. And how do you measure that? Well, Google Analytics and Google Search Console. So it kind of all plays in together with the keyword research, the blog content, SEO, and helpful content, and adding it to your website.
So you mentioned website content and blogs. There's a lot of other content. People put out ebooks, they put out videos, So when it comes to SEO, what are all the different types of content people can do that would actually impact SEO around those keywords?
Yeah, all of that. I mean, any and all relevant content. That's what Google wants, is helpful, relevant content. So as much content that you can put out there that's relevant and points back to your website helps that SEO. And then going back to that Google Business Profile, taking those blogs that you write and making that extra step and posting it on your Google Business Profile, because when you do that, it creates a backlink to your website as well, because you're linking back to your article. Or if you add a new page to your website, hey, here's our new page on, our new service, XYZ, and you have a link back to your website on your Google Business Profile for your new webpage. That's another backlink.
How many Google Business Profile, how many GBP posts on average? I know it's not a hard and fast rule, but and I don't know how many of our people in our audience know about GBP posts. How does a GBP post differ from just other content that's put out there? And how often should you be doing that? And how long? I mean, I don't want to get too technical, but like, are GBP posts simple, or are they complicated, or?
Yes and no. They're fairly simple. I think most people, if you've been on the internet, you could probably figure it out. It kind of lays it out. But when it comes to posting like content for blogs, like you can post events and things like that, but if you're adding like content, there's a section in there to add keywords to. So you want to be strategic about the keywords you're putting in there based off of your keyword research and things like that.
Okay. You mentioned GBP posts and blogs. Did you share those initially because you feel they're the most important, or those are just two that you pulled out?
They're all one of those things I automatically say because it's usually people are familiar with blogging. And so making those blogs, adding them to the website.
It's low hanging fruit, right?
Right.
But it doesn't mean it's not important.
Right.
So would you say then, if someone is, let's say they're working with an SEO specialist and they haven't really done much with content. So let's say they're doing everything and they go, I've never really done a lot of content. Where should I start? Would you say most of the time you're going to say start with blogs?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the GBP post.
Start with keyword research.
Right.
But
I mean, as far as the writing.
Adding, yes. Yeah.
The blogs.
Yeah. Adding content, helpful blogs to the website. Yeah.
Okay. That's very cool. Anything else about content?
I think that's probably good.
Okay. How often should someone be looking at their content? All the time.
You asked like how often should you be posting? So it's really dependent on the business and the industry and how competitive it is. I mean, if you're in an industry and there's low competition, once a week would be ideal. If you're in a heavily competitive industry, I would go a couple times a week if possible. I know that's a lot to ask of some business owners. So if you could get it once a week, great. If you can only get to it twice a month, anything's better than nothing.
This is where it's good having a content writer.
Yes.
I think that's where a lot of, as we're talking through this, I think that's why a lot of businesses could have a challenge with a marketing generalist, because if you only have one person, there's just so much to do.
Yes.
I mean, think about that. You're a digital marketing specialist. So you're spending all of your time on digital advertising and SEO. Imagine doing that well, plus, doing the newsletter and doing the social posts. And all these other things that go into marketing. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, that's a lot to take on.
They can't. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to take on. Okay. So is it possible? We've been Element 212. We've been doing brand name marketing for 16 years. You've been doing your area about 15. Is keyword research? Is that easy for someone to research? Is that easy to do, or is that? I mean, do you have to? I mean, can someone become good at that and understand that, or is that a complicated thing?
If they know where to go find the information.
So where do you go for that? Is that SEMrush?
You can use SEMrush, or I use Google Keyword Planner inside of Google Ads.
Okay.
So they would have to create a Google Ads account to then go in and to the Google Keyword Planner inside of there.
Okay. So I will say, you love this stuff. We as a team love this stuff. I love talking about it because I like the meaning, but like the purpose behind it and the impact that it has. But man, the technical stuff, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you learn all that stuff and stay on top of all that stuff. It has to be crazy.
I like the data. I don't know. I always liked the story problems as a kid in school.
Okay.
So just taking the data and finding what's wrong and try to fix it.
All right.
It's like a brain teaser every single day.
Oh man. This might be. I'm gonna ask one last question. There is one question I want to ask, and hopefully this is not a curveball. But one of the things that we talk about here at Element 212 is niching. We've niched down. We serve family business. We have something called the Brand Insights, which is a research-based solution that we specialize in. I do know that the word niching is becoming more popular. A lot of experts and coaches, consultants are starting to understand how to differentiate yourself. You have to niche down in some way, and there are a lot of different ways you can niche down.
Right.
How can businesses identify keywords to target just around niche? Let's say you have a certain industry you serve or a very specialized service that you offer. How can keyword research help with that?
It helps with showing you how people search.
Okay.
So just so you might think, well, people will search for me this way, but in reality, they are actually typing in a different way.
Okay.
And so maybe they're only searching for what you thought like about 10 or 20 times a month, but they're searching this other way like 100 or 1,000 times a month. You want to make sure you include that keyword phrase, like the long tail keyword that maybe said earlier, include those in your content instead of maybe what you thought you should have put in originally.
It's like a game.
Yes.
We call it a strategy. It's like a game.
Yeah.
I'm glad you answered that way. I was looking at my questions that I still had left, and I promised that I wouldn't ask questions, but I wanted to ask that one because I do believe niching down. One of the things that we promote is not only niching, but really personalizing your content and really trying to get in front of your right fit customer. So don't be a generalist. Don't try to be everything for everybody.
Right.
You want to find the right person who wants to buy whatever it is you're selling. Right. So I'm glad you answered that way, because SEO, when you talk about keywords, what I learned, which I think is fascinating, is you can get in a room. This goes for anything in business. You can get behind a room and say, "This is our strategy. This is what we're going to do." If it is not, if it is not measured, or it's not put up against reality, if you will, you can go ahead, focus on these keywords in your content. But if you don't know how the world is actually looking for what you're selling, it's really, you're really just guessing. You're almost being a little what's the word I'm looking for? Self-centered. This is, I mean, not literally, but I mean, like, these are the products and services we want to sell. This is the content that we're going to write. This is where our focus is going to be. And you might be missing the mark completely. So, yeah, I talked about the research, knowing what people want, knowing how they want to find you, knowing where to find you, where they find you, knowing how they interact with your content. If you look at all these things that we're talking about, now I know why I finished with keyword and content, because when you talk about the interconnectedness of all this, it does seem as though it all comes back to that. It's really knowing the data, knowing the analytics, knowing all those things. Otherwise, you're just guessing, let alone not doing.
Just guessing, if you're not tracking it, or tracking it properly.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I could be writing my content based on what I want people to hear from me, but if it's not relevant, there's that relevant content. If it's not relevant to my audience, I literally could be missing the mark. I could be missing opportunities to reach people, let alone sell to them. Isn't that crazy? Crazy. Okay. All right, we're almost done. What we're going to do is we're going to finish up with, I have a couple, just my last three questions. I'm going to ask a couple of them. Then we're going to do our dad joke segment. This is the most painful part of this whole thing, and then we'll wrap up with my final question. So, we've talked about keywords, we've talked about content, we've talked about algorithm updates, web audits, Google Business Profile, and Google Analytics. And thanks to you, everyone listening and watching is an expert now.
That's right.
So, what are some practical, actionable tips for family businesses starting their SEO journey? So let's say they just started, they've been thinking about starting. What are some words of advice you'd give them?
I would start with a couple things. Google Business Profile, make sure that's filled out the best of your ability, and always keep it up to date with business hours. Any change on holiday hours, keep that all up to date.
You keep coming back to that. That must be important.
Man, I've been to the pet store. They were supposed to open up at 9 o'clock in the morning, and next thing you know, they're not open till 11. I just wasted a half-hour round trip.
And now
to the
you don't
pet
go
store.
back.
Right now, I go to a different one.
There you go. Okay.
Wrong information, and
What else?
But analytics. Make sure you have that GA4 on your website.
Okay. Find someone that can get that set up for you.
Get that set up. That way, you know how your website is actually performing for you. If you're not tracking how your website's performing and whether or not you're actually getting users, you're not going to know when an algorithm update might happen and you drop off in traffic. So if you all of a sudden our phones aren't ringing anymore, what's going on? Well, if you have Google Analytics set up, you can see, well, our website traffic's down this quarter, 50% from the previous quarter. Why? Right. So Google Business Profile, and make sure you have like tracking set up so you can, know how things are performing for you. Okay. And then get into that keyword research. It's amazing. I hope that you, the viewer and listener, now that we've gone through all these, you can see how they're all interconnected. And we could argue about what's most important, what's, whatever. The bottom line is, if you have all these working if they're all being addressed and you're putting effort and time into all of them, you have a pretty strong engine going there. And it should help make, good business decisions based off of the data that comes in.
Okay. I always thought that getting on the top of page one was just a couple buttons you pressed.
Well, that's what we tell everybody. That's what they.
Okay. Yeah, and I was going to ask you how businesses could measure the success, but I think you did that. So I honestly, if there's someone out there like you who loves to learn things and wants to challenge themselves, by all means, go out there and learn about SEO. But, I recommend find someone who really loves how to do it and knows what they're doing.
Right.
It's simple, but it's not.
Right.
I'm able to talk about it to the extent that it's simple. You're able to talk about it to the point where it's not simple.
Right.
And that's the stuff I don't want to deal with. Don't ever ask me to come over and help you with your SEO. I don't want anything to do with it. So, all right, we'll do the dad joke segment, and then we'll finish up with our final questions. Okay. So, for those of you who've been on before, we do a dad joke segment. I'll tell you what the dad joke is. I'll ask you the question, and then once this podcast launches, we'll share the dad joke on our Facebook page. And if you've been there, I apologize. It's actually just a picture of my head from here on up. Isn't that beautiful?
It is, right?
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. So the question is, why do crabs not give to charity? Why do crabs? You can't. Don't get. If you know the answer, don't give it.
I don't.
But you said you like to solve puzzles and things like that, so you just calm down over there. Why do crabs not give to charity? So give that some thought. Don't look it up. Don't cheat. There may be several answers, but this is the answer. I got the answer. So anyway, when this launches, you'll go to our Facebook page and check it out. And like I said, don't make fun of my picture. It is really weird when you see someone from like from here on up, like their full bust,
right?
Not so big, but man, you take off someone's shoulders and neck, and you just do it like from here up. Man, you look really dumb. I'm telling you. I keep telling my team, does it have to be just can't we at least throw my neck in there?
Right.
Maybe at the top of my shoulders or collarbone or something. Anyway, okay. Okay. So, do you see the last couple of questions? Do you see much of a difference between someone who's hasn't done SEO at all, or someone maybe who's not doing it well or is questioning whether they're doing it well? I would think the strategy and the approach would be the same, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's really no
someone that's not doing it versus somebody who's doing it and doing a great job. Yeah, you'll probably see similar results.
And let's say they're doing it, but it's not performing well. What do you think would be the main reason? I mean, do you think it's possible? I mean, I guess I'll ask you that. Like, what do you think the main reason would be that it's not all coming together?
It could be
so many things, right?
14,000 different.
Okay. I figured you might say that. I was just wondering if there was maybe a different piece of advice that you may have. So if someone listening and watching this, again, you could be having people that are doing SEO versus people who thought about doing it or about to do it, or maybe never even thought to do it.
Right.
So I didn't know if there was one piece of advice for each one of those audiences that might be distinguishable. And maybe there isn't. I don't know. You might be able to answer it better than I can.
I would say just don't get discouraged just because, some blogs and content will be a hit, some might not. So just because you maybe put out blogs and you're not getting much traction doesn't mean you should stop. It's always about continually adding relevant content and internal linking and external linking on the website to kind of build that web. I told people it's kind of like a high school popularity contest. You want to make sure you have all this content, and Google just knows how great of a person you are. So just it's doing something is better than nothing, but doing it the right way, we'll see a lot better leaps and bounds of traffic and results.
So basically, how I would look at it from a layman's perspective, if I were listening to this, I don't mean to pat you on the shoulder or boast about this, but this is really important stuff. If you're not doing it, I hope that after you've listened to or watched this, that you start going, man, I wonder if I should do this SEO thing.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about doing it, have been thinking about, heck yeah, start doing it. Hopefully that's what you've come.
Right.
And maybe you're doing it, or maybe you're paying someone to do it, and you're not getting the results. Hopefully after hearing this, maybe one of the connecting pieces is loose.
Right.
Maybe it's something. So I would say either find someone or whoever's doing your SEO, whether it's in-house, someone that you're outsourcing to, probably good to revisit some of these things and say, hey, so-and-so, let's say they're working with us. Hey, how is my GBP optimized? Can we do a web audit? Whatever. I mean,
right.
People working with us won't have to worry about that. We're doing these things.
But it's monitored.
But I think there are people out there that are quote unquote doing SEO, but they're not doing it well. And I think there are some loose connections.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because there's just so many touch points.
Correct. Again, that so it's not just knowing the interconnectedness, it's making sure they are interconnected.
Yep.
Okay. You mentioned about SEMrush. So if someone really wants to learn more about SEO, other than this podcast, so let's forget about, I know you can learn all the technical, but let's just say someone says, man, this podcast has really motivated me to learn even more about SEO. I want to go a little bit deeper because maybe, again, I've looked at doing this. I should be doing this. What resource, is there a specific website or resource that you recommend for someone in a layman's position just to learn more about SEO beyond what we talked about today? Just doing a slightly different.
As gathering information.
Yep.
Besides Google,
right.
Search Engine Journal is a
Search Engine Journal.
That's one of my favorite. They have articles daily. You can search by SEO versus PPC versus content. It's digital marketing in general, but a lot of good information on that.
Okay. If they were to go to Google, what would be the keywords they'd want to put in the search to learn more?
What is SEO?
Really?
You could do that.
Can you really? Okay.
Go down that rabbit hole. See if something catches your eye. Like, okay, I want to learn more about that. Or type in, on page versus off page, and content writing. For SEO for website. You Google yourself some questions that, and then kind of see what information populates. But Search Engine Journal is a really good website to get really good, credible information from.
That's awesome. And then if all of a sudden you find yourself glazed over or you want to bang your head off the wall, then it's time to stop.
Right, yeah.
And just have someone else, have you bang your head off the wall.
That's what I do.
Is it off the wall or is it off the table?
Whatever I can find.
Okay, whatever's closest. Yeah, you're right. Okay. That's wonderful. Okay. Stad and I could have spent more time on this. The goal wasn't to immerse you with too much. I hope that you're going to walk away saying, wow, I'm really glad I listened to this. I have a better understanding, again, to the extent you understand versus what Todd means when he understands and what I understand might be different, but have a better understanding of what really goes into SEO, how it's not so simple as just being on page one, that there are these little components that go into it that are all within their own right very vital and important. And if you have, you talk about that thing, you're only as good as your weakest link. If one of these links is weak, you could be suffering, even if you're strong on the other. So I may have mentioned it a couple of times. I'm just so enthusiastic and so excited. I got excited, as I indicated. The more I'm learning through you, the more I'm excited to talk about it. So I hope people that have listened to this podcast episode have heard all the information you've shared, that they get they might not be as excited as we are, but hopefully just seeing wow, there's a lot out there to understand, and this really is important to my business.
Right.
Hopefully that'll get you excited. Yeah. Just knowing what's possible by embracing this thing called SEO.
Yes.
And all these connected parts. So, okay. Thank you again for watching or listening to this podcast. Again, you could have been doing anything else. And again, if you didn't get any value out of this, I apologize. If you did get a lot of value, thank you. And we have done some other podcast episodes on some other topics that are relevant to family businesses leaders. So, of course, on Spotify or our website or wherever you found this one, I encourage you to go there and take a look at some of them. And we'll have some more coming soon. So I hope this was of help. And I hope in the end that this will impact your business. And Todd, Stadler, however.
T-Rhyme.
Yeah, T-Rhyme. Thank you so much for being here. This is exactly what I was hoping for. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your passion.
Yeah. And
thanks for bringing this very, very important, this very, very important topic called SEO and all their components to light, and for informing family business leaders to maybe be able to make some small or large decisions that'll make a difference in the success and growth of their business. So thank you very much for your time, and thanks for being here.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, and have a great day.